This podcast is also available via stagelink.com, the groundbreaking new platform for live performing arts. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and my guest on today's Circuspreneur Podcast is candidate for trustee of the Clark County School District in District B in Las Vegas, Nevada, Eileen Eady. Eileen Eady is a dedicated educator and advocate with over 3 decades of experience in the trenches of our educational system. Eileen hasn't just observed the struggles of teachers, students, and parents. She's lived them as a classroom teacher for 15 years. Eileen knows firsthand the challenges of navigating the state legislature to create real change. She's not just about talk, she's about action. With her proven ability to roll up her sleeves and get things done, Eileen is committed to ensuring all staff are valued and all families have access to the resources they need. In Eileen's vision, our educators are recognized as the professionals they are, with salaries that reflect their dedication and expertise. Our families are able to easily find the resources they need in a language they understand, and our schools and community work together towards safe and enriching places to learn. With her tenacity and deep understanding of the issues, Eileen is ready to fight tirelessly to make this vision a reality for our community and our future generations. Welcome to the podcast, Eileen, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. We have a background in arts in my family, so I'm always happy to talk more about the arts and how they can work in schools. So
Oh,
thank you.
oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. And that's so good to hear. We're all about the arts, performing arts, and circus arts on this podcast. And I'm excited to get your perspective on that, where you maybe see there are the gaps in arts and education. That's a really, really, really big proponent, a cause, a part of my campaigning on this podcast. And I love to teach and bring new candidates to the awareness of circus industry folks, especially here within Las Vegas and those that have families in Las Vegas and are in the circus and the circ industry here, because there are so many. When people move to Las Vegas or they move to Nevada for a career in the circus arts, this is where they come to settle and to have families. And they can send their kids to a traditional school model and put them in a school district, other than maybe homeschooling them, which happens quite a bit if a circus family is on tour or they're on the road. So I really am excited to do a deep dive here into your campaign. And first off, I think the important thing is to describe. We were discussing right before we got on the podcast the uniqueness of a district within a district and what that means. Because I was like, right, oh, interesting, yes, we had to get that right. And you said something really, really, really valuable, to me when we were getting that right. And could you please let me know what that means, Eileen, for listeners that may not be as familiar of what it means to be a district within a district?
Sure. Okay. So on your ballot, it's going to say trustee, Clark County School Board, District B, right? When
Mhm.
people say it out loud, though, they say Clark County School District Board Trustee, District B. So it's a district and then a district. So there are there are A through F. What is that? 7. So we have 7 districts within the county, and each one is in a different physical area. So I'm in District B, which is in the north part of the county, which is north of Ann Road, from Mount Charleston all the way to Moapa and Mesquite.
Wow. And how, like, I would say, big is your district, Eileen? How diverse and how wide is it? What is
It's
the
huge.
reach?
It's about 186,000 people. Not all of them vote. So winning that number isn't quite as challenging, but it's still challenging. There's about 186,000 people in District F, and it really ranges from a small one-room schoolhouse, which is in Mount Charleston, or was, Lundy Elementary School, which they're still they're not sure they're going to keep it open, or not. So we have Lundy Elementary, which is a one-room schoolhouse. We have here in Las Vegas the larger schools, Centennial, Arborview, Legacy, and then we have Moapa and Mesquite, and that's the Virgin Valley High School. And that area is more suburban. It's a little more secluded. So they're a little bit different than, even though there are parts of the city that aren't as much inside the city, it's actually quite a lot more diverse when you're out that far away. So um, it's getting a lot more diverse. My district used to be it used to be like 85% white, and now it's becoming gradually more diverse, which is amazing, because we are, the most diverse country, or I'm sorry, the most diverse county in the entire nation. And that's a wonderful thing. And I'm excited that we have some different, some more diversity up in this area. We definitely, when you have diversity, you bring in other cultures, you bring in things like circus arts, things that first generation immigrant families bring that you don't necessarily see within your community. So it's exciting to see the growth up here. And I'm excited to see how we can incorporate more arts into the schools.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad that you brought up first generation families because so much of the circus arts industry here, their children are usually first generation American, immigrating into America from Eastern Europe or from Canada, and then just from so many other parts of the world. It's almost too many to different countries to name at this point on the podcast, but they are all my friends, and their children are absolutely fabulous and beautiful. And many of them, want to follow in their parents' footsteps into the circus arts, and most of the time are doing programs outside of schools. But it would be wonderful, and that's been a conversation for quite some time. I was just in DC the other day. I was discussing that with you, Eileen. We had the first ever listening session at the White House, and we spoke intently about circus arts in education, as the circus arts not only being an elective, but being an actual part of the curriculum in a way that it still is not yet, but that we see that there are building blocks to make that a reality. Because in the way that circus arts have benefited my life and benefited so many people and so many of my friends and colleagues and coworkers, and we've seen how it benefits children and how it can transform their lives. And obviously now the times that we're living in with children are consumed by their screens. I hunger for the times of which I grew up, which wasn't that long ago, where children had so much more access to the arts and to physical movement and
Yeah.
interpreting, their world in other ways other than just being sedentary and isolated from others within their environment. So, Eileen, could you explain what your role is, what you would be doing as the trustee, and why is it so essential and important? That it's on a ballot, that folks have to run a campaign and have to be voted in. Like, why is this so important with respect to how the education system is run within your district?
Um, Ooh, that was a big question. Okay, so the role of a trustee is to pretty much, I like to say, we're the boss of the superintendent, right? The trustees
Mm.
guide the superintendent of the schools. They're actually looking for a new one right now. We're hoping to delay that process, moving along very quickly. We haven't gotten a lot of input from the public, but basically, the trustee helps manage the day to day operations of the school district, and they also manage and guide and coach the superintendent. And so it's everything down to approving a budget item so that you can put in new equipment in a classroom, and or approving of actually it's not that granular at the trustee level. That goes down to the school principal level, but those are the decisions they make. Are we going to allow outside vendors to come in and do programs? Are we going to put in more audiovisual equipment in our schools, things like that? So those decisions um, come from that. So definitely the trustees aren't saying, oh, let's bring the circus arts in, but they're responsible for putting together a group and let's talk about this. Let's get a dialogue open. Let's start talking about what this looks like within our school districts and programs. So while I'm not individually accessing each classroom, we're guiding the direction of the district and where we want to go.
How many folks are you working with in your trustee position? How many are part of that core group that makes those really important decisions, like bringing vendors in? I mean,
There
it's so
are,
important.
yeah. So at the top level, there's 7 trustees, and then we have 3 appointed members. So there's 7 of us that get voted on, and then there's 3 appointed members. And those appointed members cannot vote. They just offer input during the meeting. The trustees that vote are actually the 7 that are elected. So this year we have trustees in districts A, C, E, and B running up for election. So there's going to be, I think, quite a big turnover next year. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
What is the difference between the trustee that was in the position prior to you running? What is the difference in your approaches, and what do you think that you are going to mend within, within being elected to this position that you felt like the other trustee maybe wasn't doing their job, or were they doing an okay job? It's just that they can't run anymore. I mean, we know there's a lot of nuances to elections, so I like to
Yeah.
get that straight. I like to know for myself, were they not reelected, or they just couldn't
Yeah.
run anymore because they ran it out?
Right. She actually, she wouldn't be able to run this time because she doesn't live here anymore. Now
Oh,
she did not run for reelection, so her term is up, but she didn't run for reelection. Now she's currently, well, actually, she had to vacate that seat last week because the district attorney's office, after an investigation of the board was done, found that she indeed does not live here in the district. So the first thing that we need in this district is
oh.
somebody, right? What are you doing? Why do you want to be working on the largest, like the fifth largest school district in the country, and all of the headaches that come into that? Why would you like, oh, I'm peace out. I'm going to live in Nebraska now, and but I'm going to stay on the school board. Like I don't understand that.
Well,
But also,
you can
you
run in
can't,
Nebraska.
right? You can't represent your community if you're not living in your community, and so that is a huge difference between the two of us. She's also not an educator. She was a veteran. She's a veteran, but she's not a teacher. I'm also running against a veteran who's not a teacher in my race right now, and she's this race is different. We have a group called Moms for Liberty that is running candidates in my race, and she did get through. And Moms for Liberty is a group that wants to they're anti-LGBTQ. They would like to ban books. They definitely would not support circus arts in the schools because they don't think performing arts are important. And so it's an important race, not just because we're influencing what decisions we're going to make and what direction our kids are going to go and how we're going to deal with and help our families who are diverse and you have to have somebody who's committed to doing that, and that is somebody who's in education and understands the different needs of our communities. I've worked everywhere from inner city Baltimore to rural Mississippi, and we live here now, and so that gives me a unique insight where somebody who hasn't been a teacher or somebody who hasn't necessarily seen school districts all over the country run, that I get a better I have a better understanding of what that looks like from a whole, above board level, but down to the how you run the schools.
Right. So experience can matter within assuming a role in this way and understanding, all of these moving parts and how they work together. How long would you be elected to this particular role, Eileen, of trustee, if you were to win and be elected?
The trustees are 4 term, so I would be elected. I'll take office in 2025, and then the next election is in 2028.
Oh wow. So you're elected for quite some time.
Yeah, a 4-year term. As like the
Or your
assemblies,
term.
they're only 2-year terms. So this one, thank goodness, like a 2-year is really hard. I work with folks who do assembly races, and it's you're either serving in the legislature or you're running for office.
So much politics. It's like, when are you actually in the role being able to like,
There's no break, right? There's none.
when are you
No,
just like not just taking phone calls trying to, yeah.
but this is 4 years, so there's more of a break there.
Oh yeah, and that's a long time to make an impact and
Yeah, it is.
to get your feet wet. And it's a long time for someone to be in there to do things properly, and there's a long time for someone to be in there to not do things so well if
Yeah.
people are not happy. Is there like public interaction with you on a consistent or a basis or in some way, shape, or form? Like, how do constituents communicate with you once you have assumed this role about the state of their district and where they're at? And do they get, are there town halls that they get to, kind of engage with you on email wise? Like, what do they get to do to speak about you or speak to you directly to you or with you and your council while you're in that role?
So one of the things that I've seen the trustees do that we do not do in my district because she's not here, but the
She's in
trustee
Nebraska.
the trustees have
Not even
community
a
meetings,
Zoom.
right? The trustees have community meetings, and so they get together with the public, and it can be, and you don't even have to have kids. You can just come to the general meeting and talk to the trustee about what's going on in that district. Um, so that's one way. They can always email us, but right now they really prefer the trustees not to individually speak to folks, and that's something I'm working on changing. I think that if we're going to be part of the community, we need to be a part of the community. We're stewards of these students. We are stewards of our education system. We are taking care of these young minds and helping them, and we need to be able to talk to the families. So that's one of the things I hope to reinstate. I plan on outside of what the district, what the let's see, under the district supervision, I plan on doing town halls with parents on a regular basis because I'm not doing my job if I'm not talking to the families. So, and being a trustee does kind of keep you a little bit removed, and that's something that I would like to work on. I'm a community organizer. Before I ran for school board, I worked with bringing communities together and organizing folks. And so that's where I'm at. I'm part of the community. I want to be in the community. It's important to me that you know who I am, that the families know who I am, and that I'm a resource they can come to. We have mechanisms in place where they can participate and be part of that school organizational team. A lot of families don't know what it is or what the purpose is. And so that's something I would really like to see improve. And I would like to see that access open up. A lot of the reasons we don't have families interacting now is because they can't find the information or it's not in the language that they speak. And that's something we really need to work on as a district. You can't communicate with your trustee if you don't have the ability to speak to them in that language and they don't have the ability to send you an email in that language. And I do think it's just a matter of just making sure it gets done. We have Google Translate now. I really, is, we have to, we put Spanish on the website, and I just went through Google Translate and then my best friend went through to make sure, but it's not that hard to make things accessible for families. And that is so important. We cannot function on our little island, where we're not interacting with the families and the teachers too. But in this case, we're talking about the families. So
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought up again language. I mean, that would be French and Russian
yep.
for the circus arts community. That I would say one, two, and then you have the slew of the rest of the other languages and cultures that are represented within the industry as well. But yes,
Hmm.
having access so that they can adequately reach out is so important. And again, we find sometimes when we're even, kind of. What is that called? Investigating on a local level in Vegas. Just where are the districts providing that information for for what their constituents need, and are they on the pulse of who is their constituent? If it's not in in a variety of diverse languages that are the majority, of which the trustee or the district serves, or could potentially, like you're saying, so many of the counties and of the districts are expanding and folks are moving in more and more and more, and there's more and more opportunity here. So they would need to, kind of keep up with that and how important that is. I did see too that you have fantastic support from several unions. Moms Demand Action is a fantastic one. IATSE, which is fantastic. They represent,
Yeah.
circ riggers. So that's a, big demographic of circus and
Yep.
circ industry workers that are supporting your campaign as well. And Teamsters, one of the biggest, most prolific unions. I passed Teamsters in DC when I was there the other day. I passed their, it's huge. Teamsters is so big.
Isn't it cool to see the buildings in real life? Oh, that's where those people work. like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's really where they are. And even within going to DC over the years, like I've never seen the Teamsters building. And so it was kind of, yeah, it was
yeah.
wild. And I saw Shannon Watts of Moms Demand Action. I follow
Hmm.
her work. And it's so brilliant and so important. And we do a lot of engagement with Congressman Maxwell Frost in Orlando,
Hmm.
Florida, who is obviously a survivor of the Parkland, shooting. And he's, one of the youngest congressmen elected to
Hmm.
Congress, and he's doing some really important work. But he represents one of the largest circus arts constituencies in America, and he's super, super supportive. What could you speak a little bit in terms of your support from these unions, Eileen, and why they're supporting your campaign? And then speaking also to maybe one or two of those issues that, I discussed, obviously with keeping our children safe. That's obviously why Moms Demand Action
Mhm.
is supporting your campaign. That's a big one, I think, for all families. I don't see how it couldn't be, especially with the incidents that just even happened recently at schools. I mean,
Yeah.
I currently don't have children yet, but I mean, it's something for me that I just, I think about and I look at all the time. I'm so concerned about our kids in schools, and it doesn't matter where they go to school. They
Mhm.
could be vulnerable at this point in time. So I would love for you to speak on that representation and that support that you're receiving.
Great. Yeah, I do have a lot of support from the unions. My husband's a Teamster. I joke
Oh,
when we first got together, he wasn't that wasn't available to him to be a part of a union, and so he kind of thought a lot differently. I was always a part of the union. I was part of the teachers union. I'm so sorry about that. We have a very noisy. He could be in a circus. He's one of those beautiful American Eskimo dogs. He is noisy,
we'll
old
get
and
them an act.
grouchy, right?
We'll look into it.